What's up, Steve?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Good to see you.
Good, Fletch. Good to see you.
Hello, hello.
Hey. What's on the menu for today?
Extensions.
Extensions, yeah.
Sweet. The bats.
Sajay. Ooh, Samuel too. Jeez, we got the whole crew coming.
Winston, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I guess I should change over to the open containers. I think the moderator has to be the one to end the call. Here, give me 2 seconds. Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Too much?
Yep, we can hear you.
Maybe too much. I'm back on Linux, Locky. It's been delightful.
What distro do you run? Probably not a distro. Build from source. No package management.
I haven't had a Slackware install in some years, but no, I've been on Debian for quite a while now. So this machine is I'm actually on my personal machine right now, and it's Debian SID, but I like rolling releases.
Gotta say, Brandon, that bookshelf always reminds me of Interstellar. I wonder if you've ever found Matthew McConaughey behind a book in an Event Horizon.
If something starts like coming off the shelf, you should worry.
Yeah, if books start moving behind you, I'll say, hey, Matthew's there.
Okay, 4 past, and it's pretty light agenda today.
We didn't have a name on this one. Sajay, was that you?
Yeah, Sajay. Do that on there. And my tab crashed. That is delightful. Hold on 2 seconds.
Nice tree, Phil.
Yeah, thanks. It's plastic, so I don't need to do anything to it. I knew that was coming.
I was going to say something about that fresh oxygen, but I guess it's just a carbon capture device because plastic is actually a great way to store carbon.
Need to get a tree cam on that thing so we can see it not growing every day of the year.
Okay.
Your cats are up to no good, Mike. Just letting you know.
Yeah, I have a little berm out in the yard at the ranch here, and a couple of small little cats showed up. 2 little kittens. I think they've been adopted by the family. So once you name them, you have to keep them, I guess.
Okay. Sorry, that took me a second to close out what I was working on. So light discussion, obviously, if other people have additional topics to bring it up. I know we've talked about the extensions proposal a lot, arguably too much, and a lot of that's been on me. So Sajay, is there anything particular you want to say about this right now? Because mostly it just needs updating for like the last discussions, and it looks like I've had a window of time this morning, which is very procrastinating or otherwise, but so I did just push before this meeting some updates, which I don't expect anybody to have read through, but it's really just trying to like start tidying it up based on the last discussions. There's still lots of like to-dos and things that if people go through this and have like, you only want to use the GitHub suggestions feature, that's fine and good. I would welcome that.
For some reason that's disabled for me.
This thing?
It'd be, yeah, I don't see it. That's why I'm giving you these nit comments rather than just giving you diffs. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. I didn't know it was a feature that had.
Well, do you have
directs.
admin? Maybe let me.
It works for me, and I'm a nobody on this one. When you do it, it just does a triple back tick with the type of suggestion.
So maybe
And so
just
you can just
jam that
type
in
that
there.
in.
One thing that I'm not in the changes that I'm going through, and like where you had the extension name and component module or whatever. I'm not keen on using the word namespace unless it's like used just as a describing word, but not as a defining placeholder name. So like in some places I've allowed it to be like the extensions namespace name, like referring to like how it's described, but not to abuse or overload the word namespace anymore.
You just want to use extension?
Even if it is a little redundant to say just extension or extension name, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm fine with
But
that.
that it's fine that it's fine if it like namespace is an extension, but not to use the word namespace in more places.
just so we're like
Basically,
talking, make sure, so this comment right here, let's make sure, so I have extension component module. Reload, I just edited it. And go up to the first instance of it in the file, and then I'll go and fix all my comments so there are suggestions. Did it not? Oh, this is not in file order.
Do we want to make a put in the table reserved catalog? I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at making a file that describes what to expect in the catalog endpoint, or just keep it as a black box reserved thing that nobody should touch.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If you go down to the, yeah, so this is the one I just wanted to be sure on. So based on all of the feedback and everything, this is the proposed thing we're arriving on. So this has the module change we talked about a few weeks ago, and then extension as opposed to namespace based on Vincent's feedback.
And I missed Vincent's feedback. What's the concern on namespace?
The word is used.
It's
throughout.
it's overloaded. I agree with that.
It's just one of those abused words. So when you say, if you just drop the word namespace somewhere, people would immediately have some context of what they think it means or what part of the stack you're in. That's all.
I'm just trying to make sure it keeps.
I mean, extension arguably could be the same, but at least in containers, it's less often seen as word namespace.
I'm just trying to keep it mentally separate for people. They understand that the extension there is probably going to be an organization or something like that. It's going to be like AWS or something more than likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people might not associate AWS with an extension.
Okay.
I don't know a good way to fix it, but I'm just naming things is hard.
Well, it's not like it's forever.
Okay. Was for the sake of everybody's excitement and entertainment, was there other particular things in this, Sajay, that you wanted to go point on, or just to rightfully push it forward?
I think we've Steven's comment is probably the captures everything, and your edits to me looks good. I don't have any concern. Namespace or extension sounds okay, because in the end, like we're saying,
Yeah, it doesn't change the functionality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, we had agreed that these things would probably change over time. So this is like an iterative approach, right? We want to see how it is and evaluate before we take it to maybe like spec version 2. And so it'll have enough bake time.
The only thing I'm missing in that comment is I don't have a character set for the namespace component module, but I think they need to follow the same rules as we have for repository names in the path components. So like can't start with underscore. And then I think they're ASCII letters, and I don't remember if they're case sensitive or not.
You're saying that that's true for
So
like component and modules should not also start with underscore, or that are you saying we should add terminology elsewhere about?
yeah, so you need to restrict that character set. So like
But which level? Where is this restricted?
The character set of namespace component and, or sorry, extension component and module need to be restricted to the same character set that we use for regular paths.
Is that needed for implementations? I'm just thinking through the logic there of if I'm parsing a string, as soon as I see an underscore and a name, that just, to me from that point, it just gets forked off to whatever that extension provider is, and they have to worry about it from that point.
Well, there's stylistic and security concerns. So the security concern is like, let's say I have an extension that's uppercase Stephen and then lowercase Stephen, but they're different. Yeah, basically this is the this right here, this component name. Although this has slashes in it, so there's just one part of that. It's like this first part of the regex where it lets basically lowercase kebab. So it allows underscore, dot, and dash separation, requires starting with a letter or number, and then one or more of those groups following it. And then this does have slashes in it. So if you just take off that front, that gives you pretty much what you need. Yeah, so that part allows slashes, which is not, that's the full name. We just want the component name. So if you take the very first part of this project up until the parentheses before the slash, that will give you a component project.
So is it a little arbitrary to not also allow them to have underscores, I guess?
No, this allows underscores inside.
Inside, but not starting with.
Not starting with, yeah. There's because
but the extensions themselves will start with one. You're just saying after that, so you couldn't have underscore.
Yeah. Like let's say we needed a new endpoint under extensions, we would escape it with underscore. I hope we don't, but does that make sense?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, sure. Why not? Seems a little arbitrary, but probably more.
Yeah.
And then nothing on the length of it.
I don't mind restricting it now and knowing that we could always relax that restriction later on. I'm kind of along the philosophy though, that once you get within that extension namespace extension, whatever you call it, once you get under that part of the path,
well,
I really don't care what goes on under there. I look at
it would never get relaxed later, because then that would mean new clients would break with not being able to push to older registries that haven't implemented it yet. Sure. So string limits. One question I did have for in your implementation and like in the ORAS stuff, Sajay et al. Are we doing this one right here? So we'd mentioned at some point like whether an implementation would make this the component or module like just pack in there, whatever v1 or something effectively into the endpoint.
Right.
But then it's got this comment here, which came in from some of Tasha's edits of doing the versions in the media type. Are y'all using that, or is this, because to me that was confusing.
I think we have an option of maybe taking that out if needed. So a couple of options that came up during the discussion was we leave the versioning to the extension, right? It could be through an argument or it could be through media type. So the extension is free to do whatever versioning it wants. Specifically for auras, what I recommended was if and when we do come across through versioning, we can make it a parameter, but right now there is no requirement for versioning. And the other thing was response types have version in there on the header.
Mm-hmm.
The same way for like distribution does. So it keeps it consistent. We don't have to invent a new versioning. Those were some of the options we were thinking. So if we don't want to do the versioning recommendation, we can take it out.
I did want to, at least mention something about versioning, but it probably is in the way of if there's a drastic enough change that your endpoint is fundamentally different or whatever. Like,
yep, you change it and like just like catalog, we're not going to use catalog. And
but if it's just that you're returning different JSON, expecting different JSON types or otherwise, then you should use that through except or content type headers.
Right. So that's why we went with the header rather than using it in the parameter and all that. And the response type, the client can parse the header and decide what it wants to do with that. But if it's totally breaking, then I don't think we should call it the same operation name. It should be a different operation. And we have options at that point in time.
Sure. Okay. Then I was about to rework that one thing and I was curious if you were already using it or something. So that's good. I'll redo the versioning. Okay. It was my plan to actually finish this before this meeting, but that ship has sailed. I've got this on my personal agenda that I will get to today. Unless anybody else has any other whatevers about this, then we can probably let most people go. And if anybody just wants to sit while I'm working on it, I'll share my screen and just keep hacking on it, but not have to keep everybody else's time for another 40 minutes. 35 minutes. Going once, going twice. I'm just imagining 16 people sitting around watching one person is not the best use of time. So
one comment on that, I feel like 16 people watching somebody does something means it gets done, as opposed to 16 people asynchronously commenting on a doc over 20 weeks. So this could be the best 40 minutes of our lives. So never underestimate a watched commenting PR's ability to get merged.
No pressure, Vincent.
No pressure, Vincent. Get the screen back up. Let's go.
Got it. I'll share the whole desktop.
Well, hopefully you can just accept my edits.
How does it?
I got it working now. I don't know why.
Only if you allow me to like pull down. Does it make commits for those? Can I just pull them down and squash them?
Yeah. So you go in. Do you want me to commit them and then you pull them down?
Let me review them.
If you're in GitHub, you should see an approve button by each one of them, and it turns into a commit.
I'll share this glorious screen again.
There's no sign-offs if you do that.
Yeah, that's the part that it needs a sign off.
Squash.
So do we want the full word, which is fine. The only reason I did it EXT is because up here I'd mentioned, done the short for.
Yeah, I mean, I was going with explicit over implicit, but
Because as far as defining it, which is inconsistent up here as far as $sign. Jesus. Do we need this recorded? Can I just turn?
yeah, turn off
I'll
the
leave it.
recording. Yeah.
It's fine.
Are you okay? Yeah, I mean, either way, I went with oh, Phil did make the government work joke. So I prefer not abbreviations because it makes it hard to look up a word if you don't know the word.
Yep.
That's the reasoning behind that. You want me to change you want me to do a commit for the top one there?
No, just give me a second. Do we want to reserve underscore ext also? I don't see a point in that if we're only using OCI and the prior catalog. We
Yeah,
iterated on ext, but it's not actually what we're using.
Reserving it makes sense.
I kind of want to reserve things just out of the idea that I don't want somebody else squatting ext and claiming to be the arbiter of all extensions. That makes sense.
What if we get the Linux file system folks involved and they want to? I'm joking.
We get kind of veto on all requests though, right? At least
Yeah, I was about to say they could already
all
do
illicit
that.
requests.
It wouldn't get merged in here. If we're
All right.
not using it, I would say not reserve it.
Good.
If y'all all want to have your own. Window open, then I'll just work from here.
Oh, are we getting NFTs?
Where are y'all? Oh. I don't know if this example is where this example came
Yeah,
from. If it was just a
that's
conversation or if that's actually legit.
no, that has to change. I'll just paste in. I'll just give you how the current specification is.
This came up in my brain at some point. I did stand up this thing that you commented on, just to be an example to the kind of like the JSON here. You know, that there's some code structure. Does it matter that it's just in the specs.go v1, or should it be in its own like package?
I mean, I assume we're not revving the major version, so I don't see why that would.
My point is, even though this is in the OCI whatever, if there's, you know, ORAS or AWS comes along, they would just get dumped in the same, if they had their own JSON data structures. The code would need to be in isolated places for those projects or otherwise.
Oh, so you're saying, do you want to make an extensions package with this in it and then have people's extension data types under those packages?
What, how to isolate it so it's not all just, you know, all those different data structures aren't getting dumped at this one level of V1. What's
in repository.go real quick? Is that just regular expressions? Right below it. Just the sibling to ext. In the same directory as v1 right there. What's in that file? Okay. And then tags is the same thing. Okay, I see what we're doing.
And I'm pretty sure nobody in the world uses those, but they're there if somebody wanted something that could marshal data structures they expect to find.
I actually use them.
Oh, good job.
So then,
validation right there.
Should we put like, so then under your proposal, Vincent, we'd have v1/extensions, and then under there we'd have a package called discovery with those types in it.
Or
and
OCI and then discovery. Yeah, I don't know. It can get a little spindly.
I mean, it's good to set practices if people want to submit their types to the OCI spec.
Looking at the comments, though, I kind of agree with Samuel that it might make less sense to have non-OCI stuff in the OCI repo. So
yeah,
we can have the OCI specific extensions over here, but all the other end users that are making their own extensions would have their own repositories with their data types.
I think it'd be pretty weird to have a vendor like AWS, if we wanted to have an extension here, have to make pull requests into this package, get them accepted, get them merged in, and have a release tagged in order for them to be usable.
That's what I kind of wanted to avoid, having some doc that could be pointed to, even if like the underscore AWS is just saying these docs are defined over there. So you could figure out, canonically, yes, we reserve the, underscore AWS, and that project is owning the definition of it or something like that.
Yeah, I think like that would be reasonable, but having the actual Go structs in the OCI package seems weird to me.
So then
So should we just
the
include that as
pattern
part
here
of-
we would have is the reference, explanation, property descriptions. Code represent. Whatever.
Hey, Vincent, just backseat driving here. Line 33, close another quote after extensions before the period on line 33. It's got the, I don't know, quotate the extensions. It starts with, what do you call them? Inverted commas in Australian, but you need one after the word extensions between the comma.
Curly.
Before curly, not curly. It's the 66 and
double
99.
quote,
Double quotes.
double quote before the colon.
Oh,
Yeah. Just compressing. There's stuff going on in the chat here that we're bubbling up. Thanks, Aaron.
Sorry, my OCD was bothering me. I didn't want to
no,
interrupt.
that's what it's here for,
No,
man.
it's okay. We've got a backseat drive if we're all here watching. Yeah, I'm learning Australian too, Phil.
Australian. Did you blow your plugger, mate? Mhm.
I don't know exactly what that means.
It's when you popped your flip flop, man.
I know, but you got to have a double plugger, so you can blow one plug and have some redundancy.
It's terrible. What? I'm messing up. It's not valid JSON anyways. The yeah, what do we do here? Name. Yeah, I think this was something that came out of a prior brainstorm of like different extensions, names, components, but even like does all that have to be spelled out if you hit an endpoint? Maybe this is too much getting into this one particular discover rather than just framing up like how to say these are within the, you know, extension piece, you know.
Shouldn't that field be path though?
Sure.
Or what's
I mean,
the
you
difference
could-
between name and path?
But part of it would even be like, how do I find the docs for this particular thing? Because if I hit a registry endpoint and it's not in the distribution spec, then
Yeah.
you know, like having something like you know, Earl of some kind. Yeah, sure. You could have, you know, the extension or name, and that's pretty. You start spelling it out too much at that point.
Well, it doesn't need to be I mean, I would think the extension name would be like a user serviceable name, so you could put almost whatever in there.
Then this sounds like description, but
Well, I'd have name and description typically, like, so you could list like what are the extensions, and so you get like a name, like a short name, and we limit that field, and then you have a description that's like, what does this thing do?
but if we do detail out the whole path, do we need to detail out the whole path? Because at that point, or you know, if you just see that it, yeah, I guess in some extent you might. Just because somebody has an underscore OCI endpoint might not mean, or yeah, underscore ORAS or whatever it is, do they have to implement the entirety of that namespace? That's the whole point of discovering what has been implemented.
Yeah, I mean, would that be a paths field?
Yeah, in an array. But then, or is that multiple extensions? think I'm spelling extension wrong.
Just Vincent,
Sir,
tell me when you're interruptible.
go for it.
Line 47 doesn't make any sense.
Under the registry root. And then some more conjugation in there.
Repository level extensions.
Same naming rules as.
Yeah, it's 2 sentences. Just put a period after endpoints and then
Follow the same naming rules. That's a clarification on what they are.
yeah, the endpoint. Extension endpoints.
Under, beneath, what's my preposition here? Under the, Aaron, you're welcome to put them into GitHub also.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I'll go ahead and I'll leave the remaining ones in the PR
Sure.
because I don't want to slow things down here. It's not a grammar is not as important as discussing the actual changes.
I'm also wondering, Aaron, if it's worth just landing this and then subsequent PR grammar cleanup.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
this is not going straight to a tagged release. This is
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm willing to start a subsequent PR to do some grammar cleanup for it.
is that any different, better, Lucky? Obviously the other one was not legible, but does this make sense?
Does to me.
It looks good to me. Sajay, do you have, I don't know who wrote the original sentence. Does it convey what
I've
you were
lost
trying to
track of
state?
who's written.
Yeah, it looks fine now. I think it's clear enough.
Stylistically, paragraphs, each line is on its own sentence. Each sentence is on its own line. Markdown doesn't care. Okay. Quick statement.
Do you do so for versioning? That's the one you were asking about, right?
Yes, sir.
How do you want to go about it? Because I think each extension will have its own probably opinion on how to do versioning. Do we leave it to the extension, or do you want to give some guidance here?
It's probably worth, I feel like it's worth, I don't know. Historically, there's lots that we don't comment on that kind of like leave it as an exercise for people, even if there's already a pattern of how folks do it. Effectively saying if it's just different types of JSON, that are accepted or can be returned, then that should be handled, that should be handled in a header, except some content type headers. Maybe I'll just type that out. I'd prefer to at least have something giving a little bit of guidance, obviously not dictating how anybody would go about doing it, just almost like pointing them in the right direction so that any of these things start looking and smelling similar enough. It doesn't even have to be JSON if the this is too poetic. And we're 4 minutes to time, so I'll stop the recording on the hour.
Author or provider?
Yeah.
Maintainer, yeah.
What is it? Co-authored. Are you in here, Steven?
What's up?
What's your email address?
Stevo, STEVVOOE,
Worst.
the worst.
No reply. Google.
It's yeah at Gmail.
No, this is not Gmail.
No, I know, but I'm saying mine is at Gmail. If you want to, are you trying to get a sign off on it?
Just a co-authored by, so that you get.
Oh, actually, you know what? It has to be my cruise email because I'm working from a. Sorry, hold on a sec. Let me just type it out. These contributions are coming from Cruise.
Oh, officially sanctioned work.
At getcruise.com. Cruise.com is for buying cruises, I think.
I don't know what Aaron's stuff is. I don't think he's been in a committer yet. Lucky, are you and Sajay in this party, or I think you're. Whatever, Josh. I'm not sure if I'll break something by not putting a full email on here.
All right, so now we just need to work in NFT and Wordle, and I think we'll be good.
No. Okay, stopping the recording.